are going to bake up our sourdough. We're going to make some shrimp scallops with a garlic lemon pasta and a giant charcuterie board for our I want to say 4th of July, but it's not 4th of July, for our New Year's Eve kind of celebration, snackcation type thing. So let's get our sourdough. There we go. We're going to score it and we're going to get it in the oven and have it bake up. Let's give it a nice expansion score. And just simplicity sometimes works the best. There we go. We're going to slide this guy in here. Had my Dutch oven toasting up so it's nice and hot here. Slide them in there, nice and snug. Put our lid on, and we're going to bake for 20 minutes at 500 and then 20 minutes at 450 with the lid off. So first 20 minutes with the lid on seals in that moisture, kind of gives it a steam bake without having to add extra liquid. It just has the natural moisture from it. Okay, do our 20 minutes. And while we are waiting on that, we are going to get our, we're going to make our cookies dough because that needs to chill and we can get on to our charcuterie. So let me grab this over here. We're going to make a just basic kind of a sweetened shortbread cookie base for our kind of cookies we're going to roll out later, some crowns that we're going to bake up. Because I like our kids always decorate little cookie crowns at the end of the, crowning off the new year. Cheesy, but it's just something we've done every year on here. And I have my little crown cookie cutter, which is really like a princess crown, but it's still a crown on there, but they'll decorate it. I've had it for a while. Let me grab my hand mixer here. I almost took out the things and forgot to set this out. But we're going to start by creaming off. This is, again, a very basic recipe. It doesn't have a lot of ingredients in it. And we'll chill it for just a little bit in the fridge. That allows it to, when we roll it out later, kind of builds up the base. You can do it with either a paddle mixer or like a stand mixer or handheld. Either one works well. Paddle cream's just a little bit nicer, but we're running, we're on a premium for our space today, so hand mixer it is. We're going to start with a cup of our room temperature butter. So that's 2 sticks. And I like to use salted butter. Now, if you use unsalted butter, it just means you're going to have to add in a little bit more salt later. There we go. So we have a cup of butter, and then we are going to add in a 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. And the powdered sugar is what's going to give the melt in your mouth kind of texture to these kind of shortbread cookies. You can use granulated sugar, but it won't give you the same kind of texture. So it works best with the powdered sugar. We're going to cream our butter into our powdered sugar. Again, this works best if your butter is room temperature. And this dough is actually very similar to the Butter Dreams dough that I make on there, in the sense that it's, it's got a good hearty base to it. Same thing with my snowballs that I make. Just a good shortbread, but we'll be able to roll this out later and make some cookies out of it. Here we go. Now we are going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla. Oh, just a pinch of salt, since we're using salted butter. But if you're using unsalted butter, you'd probably want to add in about 1/4 teaspoon of salt, or a little bit more. But 1 whole teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now, you could always change it up and do like almond extract if you want like a slightly almond flavored to your cookies. Both are lovely. but have, little different flavors to it. We're going to add in just a pinch of salt and then 2 cups of flour, and that is the base of our dough. Again, very, very simple dough. Sugar, butter, vanilla, salt. There we go. So 2 cups, 1. And 2. And then we're going to cream our butter and our butter sugar mixture into this. And then we can wrap it up with some plastic wrap and let it chill in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. And then when we're done with all of our kind of cooking towards the end, it will be ready for us to roll out and bake a batch of cookies. It's going to be crumbly at first, but once that butter is all the way creamed in here, we'll be able to hold it all together. Now, if you use a stand mixer, this creams together a little bit easier. You won't need to use your hands for that final part at the end, but it works pretty much the same. So we're done mixing it. Our final part we'll do with our hands to kind of incorporate it all together, and then we'll wrap it up with some things. So you're just going to simply squeeze it together to make your dough. Now, again, with your stand mixer, it will all come together on its own. A hand mixer kind of breaks it up a little bit more, but get the same result at the very end. Okay. Looking good. Give this a couple good smushes. And then we're going to chill it. Okay, let me grab a little plastic wrap, and that way we can seal it up and have it ready. Here. And this will allow, so you just need to do it for 30 minutes because you don't want it to get rock hard, so you don't want to do it for too long, but it allows the flour to hydrate, so it will hold it together a little bit more, and it will allow it to be a little bit firmer when we roll it out into our shapes, our little crowns. And again, it's just a really lovely, simple kind of shortbread cookie. I like to do a shortbread cookie over like a sugar cookie because it just, when you do the icing on it, it just is, I think, the right amount of sweetness. If you have sugar cookie plus the icing, it just gets a little sweet. So we'll chill this off in our fridge. Let me wash my hands. And we're going to work on our charcuterie because our last part will be searing off our scallops and our shrimp that we have over here and making our sauce, which takes hardly any time. So we'll get our water boiling here. I'm going to just turn it up, and once it's at a nice boil, we'll put some salt in and we'll get our pasta going. But while we're doing that, we've got this giant charcuterie board that we're going to be making here. Let's start out by first making our little tomato, mozzarella, and basil, like a caprese salad here on here. That will be one part of it. So I've got a couple of tomatoes here. So we're going to have lots of like little finger foods, meats and cheeses, just kind of lots of fresh stuff. That will be wonderful. So we'll get these sliced up. And get round. And I'm just going to cut a couple of them. Then we'll get our cheese going, and then I'll see how many more I need to go from there. But we're going to put fresh basil with this. And then I have some balsamic vinaigrette glaze, which gives you a little bit of the tangy and the sweet. And it's just lovely to drizzle over it. And I have a whole nother pack of tomatoes if I need some more. This is just something that's a little bit lighter and a little bit more fresh. That is just kind of nice to have.
You have a question? Are your parents coming over tonight?
Yes, they are coming over, which is why we're having a little bit earlier dinner. Normally they always go out to eat on there because they decided to get married on New Year's Eve. Therefore, they always would go out to eat and whatnot. But the restaurant that they had their reception dinner in burned down a couple years ago. So they haven't really had the need to want to go out anymore. And so then they asked, they're like, and they normally never join us, but they're like, oh, can we come over and join you this year? And I'm like, sure, why not? And so I was like, I'll throw together a charcuterie. Luckily, I have 1,000,001 things in my refrigerator to get this pulled together. Lots of cheeses and salamis. So we've got it going. And I don't know, I was just kind of craving seafood today. And so we're going to have scallops, pan-seared scallops, and shrimp. I have some of these colossal shrimp for our dinner tonight. Just a slightly lighter fare, not too heavy, because tomorrow is going to be a slightly heavier meal on it. Let's get our fresh basil out. Oh, this leaf. This thing's huge. I love the big basil leaves. We're going to put it out, and then we're going to put a bit of fresh mozzarella on each piece. And then we'll see where this gets us. I think I've got every tomato. Okay, this guy is tiny. We'll switch him out. We'll double up. Okay, now we've got our just freshly sliced mozzarella, and we're going to get this on there. I was thinking about getting, you could do the little toothpicks with the cherry tomato, basil, and the mozzarella. And I was like, oh, I could do that, but this is a little bit easier to assemble. I don't have to thread a bunch of things through a toothpick. We'll put a piece of mozzarella on each one. Assemble this back together. Let's see if I need to cut any more tomatoes or if I'm going to have enough. I got a small one of these little fresh mozzarella ones, and so they don't go quite as far as the big ones. I think I may have almost perfectly. You know what we do? Whenever there's something like that, you just have to eat it. Can't let it go to waste. Almost perfect though. Let's see. That's what I didn't know how many slices were in there, but pretty close, guys. Let's slide this over here so I can clear off a little bit. Before we put this on there, what we're gonna do is we're gonna drizzle this with our little balsamic reduction or balsamic glaze. This is gonna give it a lot of great flavor. So you want a good little put over it. Perfect. And it kind of just soaks up some nice little flavor here. This is going to take up a good spot in the middle of our thing. And get a paper towel, wipe up a little bit of my tomato mess so that it won't be too damp when I'm doing some of my cheeses next. Okay, let's get some of these bigger ticket items out of here, and then we'll finish up with the little stuff. So this is actually, this big thing right here is my stove cover that you can flip over, and it makes, so the stove cover on one side and then you flip it over and it's like a charcuterie board on the other side. It's also a cutting board, but it's one of those things where I like it to be my stove cover so I won't cut on it because then it won't be pretty anymore. So, but we've got it for our charcuterie. on here, and it makes a really big charcuterie, which is nice. And it has nice little edges, so if you have little dogs like ours, they can't just sneak by the coffee table and try to steal it as easily. Doesn't mean they can't get it, just means it makes them work a little bit more. Okay, we've got our crackers. We got to get our variety of crackers in here. And I keep it old school, Ritz, wheat thins, and I've got some Townhouse snowmen because they're cute. But we just keep really, I don't go too bougie with the crackers because we just like, you like what you've always had. And my kids, they know if I try to do like an imitation Ritz, they know. We got some of our little Christmas or my snowmen Ritz or Toll House. They're not Ritz, they're little Townhouse. Not even Toll House are cookies, guys. There we go. Cute little snowman there because everybody needs a little snowman. So we've got plenty of crackers there. Get the boring stuff out of the way. And for this, my husband's already trying to steal the stuff from it. Before we have anything, because my parents are here and they love olives just like me, I actually got some olives that we'll put out there, which I'm excited because I love a good kind of collection of olives. And it's funny how when you're younger, you don't like I did not like olives, but now I love olives. So kind of nice. Let's see if that fits in there. Perfect. Fits in there nice. I don't even need to waste a bowl on it. Okay. So you know what? I might do it just to make it look nicer. It's going to bother me if I don't. There we go. Perfect. It's how I always used to make fun of my mom because she would always like make us pour our soda into a glass so that her table would always look nice. She always set a wonderful table. Always had the nice linens and everything like that. And to me, I'm like, oh, that's crazy. We don't need to do that. And I appreciate it now. As I've gotten older, I appreciate the nicely set tables. They don't happen often, but I appreciate them. Okay, we've got some smoked little sausage bites. Little things. These are, I feel like the little boys are going to love these because they love little sausages. So these are little smoked sausage bites. I'll put these near the cameraman so that he has a reward. He did some Tybo with me today with some Billy Blank's Tybo, and I made him do the really hard one. I was saving it up for him, and he was like, this is really hard. Now, I will tell you that when we're doing that, we do resistance bands, and I don't have just like a random set of resistant bands. I have a 10, a 20, a 30, a 40, and 50. So I got out and I got myself the 10 and the 20 resistance band, and I gave my husband the 40 and the 50 resistance band. So he did the Billy Blank's 50-minute Tybo with the 40 and 50-pound resistant bands while I had the 20. So he's a little bit more sore. Okay, we've got some meat sticks we'll throw over here on one little area. Lots of little things. We're going to get some nuts in a couple different areas. Having lots of little bowls for the little loose things are nice. You know, the meats and cheeses we'll have and the fruits we can have fill around, but the nuts and stuff like that, these are nice to have in a couple different areas. Looks like we're going to be ready to drop our fruit or our pasta in just a second. Here. So we should have, you know what I might do? 2 little bowls of each of these. Spread the love out. My stepdad, he loves nuts. Every time he comes over, he raids our pantries. And then he conveniently lets me know when we're out of the nuts that he likes. He'll be like, by the way, the cashews are all gone, or the pistachios are all gone. And I was like, well, they weren't when I bought them, but I noticed you've enjoyed them. Here we go. Shake it, shake it. Crisscross these. Now we just have to do filler around because we have got our fruit and cheese and some little meat fillers. See how easy it is to whip this up? Let's get our pasta going in here. Since our water is nice and boiling, we are going to use some of this pasta water in our our sauce. I'm going to add a little bit of salt to it. And then we are going to be using this funky gemelli pasta. I was thinking about it today. My husband and my older son were at the movies today. They always go for like a birthday tradition, and I was thinking about making some homemade pasta to do homemade pasta with it tonight, but then I really was sore after Tybo, and I was like, I don't know if I can eat this pasta dough for 10 minutes, but I almost did. Okay, there's my little pasta stir. I said, but we already had homemade pasta this week. Okay. Give that a little stir. We'll let that cook for about 10 or so minutes on it. Okay, let's see. Let's start with, let's get some of the big colorful fruit in here. Then we can fill in with some of the cheeses before.
You have a question. Would you salt the pasta water if you weren't going to use the water?
I would not salt the pasta water if I wasn't going to use it because I have found I put all of my pasta in a sauce afterwards. I never keep it separate. And so I find that just salting it just adds more salt, and you don't need to because my sauces are going to have the saltiness that I need. But since I'm going to be using the liquid in my sauce, I'm saying that weird, I do it because then I don't have to add as much salt later.
Do you have any go-to vegetarian meals?
We don't really eat vegetarian here. Now I make a lot of vegetable sides for things because I love my sides. But as far as full-on vegetarian, we don't eat that. So I would say you just have to pick one of my sides because we do our main, base and then, lots of sides. Okay, we're going to turn this down to 450 and we're going to bake at 450 for the next 20 minutes with the lid off. There we go. And then that should be nice. It'll perfect because I was like, we're going to have a nice kind of lemony garlic cream sauce, which I feel like will be lovely to dip our bread in as well. I'm going to cut my grapefruit down, and then we're just going to do half slices. I was having like a conversation with Teddy today, and he was telling me how he likes big oranges over little oranges because big oranges give you more juice. And I was like, oh, so really it's just the juice factor that you like, not really the eating factor, because he really just, kind of sucks all the juice out of the orange. But I was like, okay, good to know. I think it's because when I give them big oranges, I slice them up and they eat it out versus like the little oranges, they get them in segments and then he has to eat the segment versus just sucking the juice out. Okay, let's get our things going here. We'll put a couple slices around, and you just want to add these in different areas to kind of break up the color here. I have lots of things. We got some nice fresh grapefruit because it's delicious. I'm going to get our fruit around because then we can have, our meat and cheeses at the end. We've got some little mandarin oranges here. And I find throughout the night, it's nice on, especially like here, making kind of a charcuterie where you can kind of snack all night on is really, really nice because you're going to be up for so late, and it's nice to not have to go and get more snacks. If you have this going, you can kind of just eat it all nice, and it's lovely. Okay. We'll throw in some right here. Put some over here. Get another set of this cut up. cut them down. And always try when you're doing it and balancing it out, get some bright, like colored fruits. It just makes your charcuterie pop a little bit more than if you just stick with, all one color or more muted ones. But also make sure you get fruit that people eat and that are easy to eat. There we go. So we're going to get this. Oh, perfect. Okay. And then let's get we'll get some cherries out. Then we have some strawberries, raspberries, and we'll get that kind of moving. So cherries are wonderful. They give really nice pops of colors. Looks like we have somebody at the door. So I'll come and grab, and you can see this little beautiful me. Okay, we'll do a little swirl here onto our charcuterie. We're going to add our pops of color here. We're going to add in some cherries over here, preferably not on our crackers. There we go. A few more right here. And then I'm going to actually come and give my pasta a little bit of a stir because I don't want it to stick to the bottom of our pot. There we go. And let's see, we had a few more cherries here, and looks like we're back. I'm going to put some, because cherries are one of our favorites in our family. I'm going to put a couple more over on this side. And we'll slide it up right here. Okay. So we've got our cherries down here. And let's get our raspberries out. Pop some over here. And then the nice thing is we'll do our filler in with our meats and cheeses everywhere else, because those are more like bland in colors. And so those are great to spread out and fill everywhere else. There we go. Got that assembled here. And let's get a couple of strawberries out there. We're doing quite well. We won't need all of these strawberries, so I'm going to take out kind of a big handful here. With the strawberries, I like cut the tops off. That way my kids actually eat the full part of them. There we go. So we'll just cut off our little top right here, that because if you've ever given a kid a full strawberry, I swear they'll eat like half of it and they leave like so much of it. And I'm like, the other day, like Eva was like, I want some strawberries. So she took it out. And then I was like, oh, no, bring me your tops. I'm going to cut off the green parts. And she had like 3 whole strawberries from the tops left over. So we're going to have this, and then we'll be ready to add in some of our meats and cheeses. So it's kind of like a fruit tray, Okay. Let's get some strawberry. Oh, look at me. I already missed one. Get that on top. And put some right over here. Beautiful. Okay. Let me wipe down my cutting board. And let's start with our salamis. So I have quite the collection of salamis. So this is a peppered salami. It's not super spicy, but it has a little bit of like a peppery outside to it, which is always fun. You don't need the whole bit for this, so it's always great. You can save the other half for charcuterie time. So we're going to slice this up, and then we can add it into our base. Here we go. And this actually plays really well with like the white cheeses. That pepper and the white cheeses really work well together. Mhm. Okay. So we're going to start, we'll add this one here. We'll add a little bit over here. And we're going to start just filling in these gaps. Our next salami is some Genoa salami as well. Again, you don't need all of it, just about a half of each one, which is nice because again, we have more salami for another day. And these are ones that are really nice because they will hold up through the evening as well. Some meats do not hold up as well. They'll dry out. I will say if you're going to make a charcuterie way in advance, make sure you cover it with some plastic wrap so that you don't, again, have your cheeses or your meats dry out. Okay. We'll get some tucked in back here. Slide some of this over here. We're getting this I want to make sure they're all broken apart here. There we go. Okay. I'm going to get a little paper towel here because we got some little pepper crumbs.
What knives do you like?
So I actually use the same knife set. I've had the same knife set for over 16 years. This is the Wusthof Classic. I've got it as a wedding gift, a whole set, and I have not changed since them. They've lasted forever. They're wonderful. I really like the heft of them. And it's funny because they're the knives I grew up with. Like my parents had the Wusthof. And so then I asked for that as like a wedding gift, and my siblings went all together and got it for us. And I really, really like them. And whenever they're getting dull, I just sharpen it up with the honing steel, and then they're as good as new. But they are wonderful. Now this is the classic, which is like their original ones, which are my favorite. They do make like a more economical one, which is the gourmet. And the main difference between the gourmet and the classic, they're both very sharp knives, is the weight of the blade. So the gourmet is a very light blade. It's much thinner. And so it has a little bit more flexibility into it, but it's really sharp. So you don't have to kind of worry about whether it's going to cut really well or not. It's just the heft of it. Okay, let's slide this in as a summer sausage on it. Tuck this little piece here. Let's get some cheeses in here, and then we can fill in with some of our last little bits of it. So this is our charcuterie we're making up, and it's pretty fantastic for our for New Year's Eve. We've got lots of different things coming in, lots of little flavors. We've got our pasta cooking up and our sourdough cooking up in the oven. We'll work on the rest part of our dinner in just a second as we finish this up. So we have a bunch of just leftover kind of cheeses from the smorgasbord. We got a specialty things here, so we're going to add some of these cheeses on here. The nice thing is having variety on there. So this is Pretty Boy cheddar that we're going to slice up. This was a really big hit last time we made it. Delicious. The sharp cheddar. Then we've got a smoked Gouda, a smoked cheddar, a classic Gouda here. But we're going to slice this down. And then I have a Havarti, like a Havarti dill that we're going to add in.
Do you have a question? What's the cheese on top of the tomatoes and basil?
So that is fresh mozzarella cheese. So that's nice caprese salad. So kind of like a little hors d'oeuvre as well. So like a little bit more complete component of it with some tomatoes there and just delicious. Okay. Let's add in some of I'm going to find a place that doesn't have any orange. Here's our Pretty Boy cheddar. This cheese place has just the most wonderful names for it.
And what's poured on it?
Oh, it is a balsamic reduction. And so it's kind of like a sweet balsamic vinaigrette. that's been cooked down. So it's tangy, sweet, and salty all at the same time. So it's kind of a perfect little mix of it. Here we go. This is some smoked white cheddar that we're going to put on our board now. We'll add this here. Nice little pop. And then, oh, missed a piece. Now with this one, because it's kind of a half circle, I'm going to kind of cut it in little wedges on there. And this is just a classic Gouda. Actually, this one's a smoked. This is the classic. You can tell the smoked by the little ring around it. As the cameraman is enjoying the charcuterie, we'll have to build in the bald spots at the end. Okay, let's get some of that tucked in right here. We'll save this part. Let's get some classic Gouda out here. Let's check our noodles real quick. Let's pull one up. Still need about 3-4 more minutes. And then we're going to get this cut into wedges on here. I find if you keep your different cheeses cut in different shapes by what they are, so I'm keeping my Goudas cut in wedges, my cheddars are cut in things, that helps you identify them better because, of course, cheeses can all look the same at the end. There we go. I'll throw that in there. Delicious. This is just, we're going to add a sharp cheddar on here. And then I have a reserve sharp cheddar, which is a white, which is actually, it's a creamer, but it's delicious. Now, I will say sometimes cheddars, or the sharper the cheese, they don't cut up as well because they're a bit more crumbly. If you're going for those perfect shapes or you want to cut them out, you have to go for a slightly softer or more mild cheddar or softer cheeses for that. But if all you care about is the taste, then you can go for whatever cheeses you want. Here we go. Slide that over. So we've got our sharp cheddar in here. Kind of tuck that in there. We've almost got this all pretty much filled out here. Just saying. So I've got a few more. Here is my extra sharp cheddar here, reserve. This was such a hit. My husband was like one of his favorite at the smorgasbord. I'm going to cut a piece down to make it nice. And I will give this to the cameraman on here. So this, as you can tell, is a really sharp cheddar because as you cut it, it's going to crumble more because it has been aged longer. So it's more dry, but it has a more tangy flavor. So I'm actually going to try to cut the pieces a little bit thicker so that they hold together a little bit nicer. This is your nice aged cheese, your sharp. If you want that real kick in your cheddar, you want to go for the older, the sharper. The more mild cheddars, the ones, those are that are smoother, creamier, less powerful in their flavor. Those are the milds. Okay. Let's add a couple blocks of this over here. I'll add a couple blocks over here. And then I've got one more cheese that I'm going to cut up and a few more meats, and then our charcuterie board is done. And it's kind of got our feast here. This is our dill Havarti. You might think that's kind of a weird combination. It is actually, we got this cheese last year, and we weren't sure we were going to love it because dill is such a strong flavor. It's, the pickle flavor. It was so good on it. Okay, I'm going to kind of cut these, and then we'll check on our noodles on there. And then once we reserve some of our stock or our, not our stock, but our starchy water, we can get working on searing off our, I keep wanting to say salmon, not our salmon, our scallops and our shrimp. We have some colossal shrimp, scallops on there. For dinner, we're going to make a lemon garlic cream pasta. We've got our sourdough baking up on it. So lots of deliciousness for tonight. Put this all right here. Okay. Few more out here. This is by far my kids' favorite, and the most simple thing on here is just a good old like hard salami. And I just keep it simple with how I fold it on here. And we'll put it several spots because, again, this is their favorite. I kind of fan it just like that, and then they can pick it up. I find, like they have lots of people will do those little like salami rosettes where you put it in the bowl. The problem with a salami rosette is they're very difficult to take apart and eat. And now if you're family, that's fine. But if you're a guest, you can't really pull it apart and use your hands if you're a guest at a place. So, when you're thinking about making it, try to think about how people are going to eat it. So if you can easily grab it with a fork, sometimes that's the easier method, or tongs. Of our family, we're all just going to dive in and eat it. Put this one over here. Tuck it under. Perfect. Okay. And I've got my prosciutto, and then we are just about done here. Now with the prosciutto, it is a tricky one to do. I simply roll it up into nests like this, and then you can tuck your nests in, and then people can pull up a nest. It's really hard to cut prosciutto evenly because you have to kind of cut it through. It tears, but it is delicious on your charcuterie plate.
I have a question. Where did you get the large board?
This large board, I got it on Amazon. I actually have it in my Amazon storefront. It actually serves as two things. It is my stove cover so that I don't have to look at my stove on my island all the time, which is nice, especially because our island, our kitchen is kind of in the center of our house in there, which makes it really, really lovely on there. And you can flip it over, and it's a giant cutting board. Okay, let's go grab our sourdough out of the oven. We'll have that sit, and then we can work on the rest of dinner, which actually is going to cook up so fast because seafood is quick and delicious. There we go. Let me put my glove on. Look at our beautiful sourdough. Make sure I got the timer off. We'll put it right here. We're going to take it out of our bag or our pot because we don't want it to continue cooking on the bottom. But here is our gorgeous. We've got our expansion score, our pretty design, golden brown crust on the bottom. And it'll be perfect for our dinner. Nice and hot. Okay. Let me pop up these last little bits here because I think our board is just about, I'm just going to spread out now that we have our kind of filler. You can kind of tweak and pop in there and get everything going. Perfect. So we'll slide these guys out of the way. That way I can clear it off. Our noodles should be ready here in just a second, and then we can kind of work on the remainder of our dinner. Okay. Slide up in there, but this is a nice little hors d'oeuvres as you're waiting, watching the throwbacks of all the shows. They always do the countdowns, the previous ones. This will work. Let me give this a quick wipe off. And there we go. We'll just use the dry side. I'm going to take my noodles. They should be done. And then we can start with everything else. Let's give them a good check. I just want one. Perfect. Let's grab a little container here. I'm going to turn off my liquid or my pan. We're going to ladle out some of this starchy water so that we can use it in the base of our sauce. It will help thicken it up without having to use any other base. It will allow us to use a lot less cream to get us there. You just got to get it without the noodles. We're going to reserve 2 cups. And then we can strain our noodles. And then we can have them resting because we'll toss them in our sauce. And then we can start sauteing off. We'll saute off our shrimp first, and then we'll do our scallops. Shrimp is a little bit more hearty and is done better. Scallops, when you cook them, you want to eat them very well because they're not ones that hold well. It's fine if we've got one noodle in there. There we go. So we've got that. Let me get our things straining here. We can have this rest here. Have it sit next to our sourdough bread as it's cooling. I'm going to get my other big pan out here. And we can start with our sauce. We are going to put in about 2 tablespoons of butter, maybe a smidge more in here. Just give it a little pinch. Perfect. When we cook off our shrimp and our scallops, we're going to do it in a mixture of oil and butter. Oil allows us to cook it a little bit higher than the butter, but the butter will give us the really nice flavor. I think the cameraman is enjoying the charcuterie too much. Say, as long as the charcuterie looks nice and tastes good, I'm happy. My kids love charcuteries. It's so funny. As a kid, I'd never heard of a charcuterie until I was like a teenager. And then it was like all the rage, and they're, Teddy at 4 years old and Jack at 2, they're like, charcuterie? Can I have a charcuterie for lunch? And I'm like, of course. Here we go. So we're going to mince up our onions. That way they will be more delicate in our sauce and not too overpowering. Perfect. Bring this. We'll get them to start cooking. I'm going to turn and have this cook over about a 4. I don't want it too high, nice and low, because I want them to kind of caramelize first on it. And then let's get our scallops and our salmon, or not salmon, I don't know why I keep saying salmon, our scallops and our shrimp over here. I have them patted dry because in order to get the best crispness on them, especially since they were frozen first, you want to really make sure you have them nice and dry. That way they will really get a good saute on them. We're going to keep our seasoning really, really simple here. Just garlic salt, and then at the end, we'll squirt a little bit of lemon juice over them as well. So, a little sprinkle here over the top. On it. Watch. And then before I flip my hands over, I want to make sure they're washed up well. We're going to flip each one over so we can salt the other side. There we go. But I find simplicity works well with scallops and the shrimp. The butter and the garlic salt are really all you need. These are going to cook up really fast with the shrimp. You'll know they're ready once they turn a nice bright pink. With the scallops, it's about a minute on each side, if even. If your pan is nice and hot, they'll cook up nice and easy. Okay. Dry my hands here. Let's get this. Might add a little bit more butter in here since I have such a big pan, but I want to be able to put my pasta in it later. Okay, let's get these sprinkled over. Nice little sprinkle, sprinkle. Making sure I get every little scallop on there. And then I'm going to start heating up my pan here. We're going to do half oil, half butter. Again, the oil with the butter will allow me to cook it at a slightly higher temperature without worrying about my milk solids in my butter burning as easily. And the butter will give you just the great butter flavor. Here we go. Add that in there. And then I'm going to cook my shrimp first, and then we will reserve that to the side, and then I'll get new oil and butter for that. Let's get our onions here. Give this a good toss. This is going to be for our sauce, which we're going to be, it's just going to keep it really, really simple today.
Oh, what type of pans do you use?
So this is my 6-quart all-clad saute pan, which I love. I call it my pasta pan because I can make my big pots of like pasta because I can make the sauce and then toss the noodles right in there. So for my all metal cookware, I use all clad, and then for my non-stick, I use Hexclad on here. So this is the 12-inch frying pan from Hexclad. I love them both. I've had these for over 16 years because they were a wedding gift. And so they have lasted forever with me. And then I made the transition to Hexclad a little over 2 years ago. And I will say I am giving them really good reviews because I have not damaged them yet. And that's always your fear when you buy a non-stick pan is you're going to ruin them. I haven't done it yet. They clean up really easily, and I like them. So I think that's a nice little bonus with them. So I do recommend them both. I actually have them both in my my Amazon shop because I do. Their stuff, if I have it in my kitchen and I like it, I put it in there to share with everybody because, you know, that's what cooking is about. It's about sharing. Okay, so with asparagus, you always want to cut off the bottom inch or so. That bottom part is really dry and fibrous, and it's not going to be delicious at all. It will be like chewing on a stick. So you definitely want to make sure you cut it off. You're not wasting anything. You're only getting rid of the bad part. And then we're going to have this actually in our pasta sauce, so it'll be lovely. I'm going to give this a little stir here, and then we're going to turn it down just a smidge to about a 4. But I'm going to cut my asparagus at a slight angle. That way they look a little bit more bougie in here. So I'll just do a couple at a time on it. So just hold your blade, your knife at an angle when you cut them, and then you're going to just get that kind of prettier cut on it. You don't need a fancy, you know, mandolin or anything like that to get it. You just have to hold your blade at a slant. There we go. And that way these will cook up nicely and we'll have little, you know, asparagus bits throughout our pasta. And get our last ones. I think these, there we go. A couple of those. Perfect. So those will be ready on here, but let's give our onions. We've got a nice kind of saute up here. Beautiful. Good caramelization happening. Beautiful. Okay, let's get our garlic in. Normally I would use fresh garlic, but I am all out. Crazy how much I go through it, so I've got to grab my next thing to get at the store. But I always have my little garlic on hand because it's always great in a backup. We're going to use a good heaping spoonful of this. We're going to pop it in there. Keep an eye on it because it will toast up really quickly and you don't want it to burn. There we go. I'm going to let that saute for just a second. Bring out those flavors. And then we're going to add our asparagus in. And then I think our shrimp, our first round, I'm going to give this a nice swirl. We'll be ready to cook off our first round of shrimp. Here. I'm going to just coat up our asparagus with all of that nice onion and garlic butter on here. All nice flavor. Beautiful. And then let's get our shrimpies in the pan. Now, shrimpies are going to take no time at all to cook up. You will know that they're ready once they turn a bright pink and you see no more gray.
You have a question? What do you season the shrimp with?
Just garlic sauce, garlic salt. We're cooking them in this butter oil mixture. And then, of course, they're going to go into our pasta at the end. So they'll be kind of coated in a lovely sauce. So nothing over the top with them.
Judy sent tickets.
Well, thank you, Judy. We appreciate that. There we go. I'm just making sure each one of my little shrimpies here have a little spot on the pan. We'll just spread these out. That way they can get this nice little sear up on them. We'll flip them over and let them cook. And then we'll put them on a plate until we're ready to toss them into our sauce at the end. There. Let me grab my little zester. And we are going to zest in some fresh lemon zest with our asparagus. This is going to add this nice little burst of freshness to it, more so than the lemon juice that we'll add. The zest really gives you the power. So we've got that in there. Nice. And then I'm going to cut and we'll squeeze just a little bit over because we can save some for those who want to squeeze a little bit extra on their shrimp or their scallops. But just a little bit in here. Perfect. Kind of coat it up. Give it a nice little coating here. Toss it. I'm going to sprinkle a little garlic salt over this, and then we are going to start adding in our starchy water here in just a second. That will do it. Just a little bit of garlic salt. My shrimp is ready. You can see they're starting to turn pink, so I'm going to flip them over on there. You've got this nice, wonderful. You can see we've got this nice little brown little kind of crust up on their little edges. Beautiful. And like I said, shrimp cooks up fast. On here. And I'm cooking this over like a 6-7 again because we do have that butter base in here, so you don't want to go too high on there with the butter and the oil because you don't want to burn those milk solids. We've got our starchy water here, but before I do that, let's add in a spoonful of chicken bouillon to it. That's just going to help season up the thing or the flavor of it. If you don't want to use chicken bouillon, you could use a little bit of white wine in there, but I think my kids kind of like the flavor of the chicken bouillon over the white wine on there. But it's kind of like a lemon garlicky sauce on here, so either one works with it. Chicken is going to, of course, make it a slightly more savory. where white wine will give it a bit more of a tang and robust flavor. Now we're not just going to pour all of this in at one time. We're just going to pour a little at a time. Mix it up, kind of coat it. This is going to help steam our asparagus as well and kind of cook it. But make sure you deglaze that bottom of your pan. Beautiful. I'm going to grab a plate to take our shrimp off. What? Oh, well, thank you, D-Mac. We appreciate that. Let's get our shrimpies off. You see that they are nice and pink all the way through, which means they're cooked up. Don't leave them on too long. Again, when you take them off, they continue to cook. So you want to make sure, that they're pink, but don't leave them on because the longer they cook, the rubberier they get. And we'll throw them in our pasta sauce at the very end. Because again, you don't want to overcook them. I think that's the biggest thing with seafood is it's like shrimp and scallops get overcooked very easily and then they're just very rubbery. We're going to put our second round of shrimp in here. And then what we'll do is we'll change our butter oil mixture so that we don't have any shrimp flavor on it, and we'll sear off our scallops. And that one I'll go a slightly bit more butter on it because I really love that butter crust on a scallop, that really brown color on it, just delicious. Kind of coat this. There we go. So we'll get that going. You can see we've kind of got a rich, more velvety sauce in here, which is wonderful. That's what using that starchy water gives you. It allows you to have a thicker sauce than adding any flour, which I think is wonderful because flour is a good way to thicken sauce if you have to use it, but it will give you more of a plastic-like texture to your sauce. There we go. We're going to add in a little bit of cream. We can open it. There we go. Nice little splash. About maybe a third cup or so on here. And then we're going to add some Parmesan cheese. And all of this, the beauty of this is it's going to cook your asparagus until it's nice and tender, but it won't be overcooked, which is wonderful. Let's get this in here. Our shrimp are just about ready to flip over. You can tell when they're ready to flip is when you start to see that pink shining through. Beautiful. Perfect. We got these nice little like seasoned crusty bits on them from the garlic salt, which is going to have so much flavor. Beautiful. So we'll have those off here in just a second. Like I said, so quick.
Can you go over what's on the shrimp?
Again, we just patted them dry, and then we just sprinkled garlic salt over them, and then we're cooking them in a mixture of butter and olive oil so that they get a good kind of, you get that butter flavor, but a kind of a higher cook on it. Here is going to be our lovely, it's like a lemon garlic cream sauce. Grab a spoon here so we can taste this. See if I want to add any more of anything in here.
Could you use garlic powder instead of garlic salt?
Garlic powder is more grainy, and so it doesn't quite have the same texture as garlic salt. It doesn't kind of dissolve as nicely, so it would leave a grainier texture on your shrimp. And then you would have to use also salt with it. So I personally prefer garlic salt over using garlic powder just because it is a texture thing and that flavor in it. And then when you use it, you don't have to use any extra salt. Let's get our shrimp off here. And then I'm going to turn this off real quick. I'm going to wipe this out with a napkin real quick. That way I can switch out that butter and that olive oil. That way my scallops will just sear in their own flavor with none of the shrimp. We're about ready to toss our pasta into our sauce. Just take a paper towel, spread it around. This is the best way to get up residual oil and stuff. Perfect. And now we can add a little bit more fresh base to it. I'm going to turn it up, and then we're going to add our butter in here. Once that butter is melted, we will drop our scallops in, and we will let them kind of sear off. Get a nice little crusty foot on each side on it. Scallops don't take hardly any time to cook up, which is the beauty of them. Here is our lovely pasta sauce. I'm going to start dropping in our noodles now. That way they have a chance to soak up. Now, don't worry about it. We didn't coat any of our noodles with butter or anything like that, because once it starts to touch this sauce, they will start to break apart. See? Beautiful. And that's why you want to cook your noodles to about an al dente, a little bit before they're super soft, because they can soak up this flavor. You see how they're just soaking up all of that sauce in here? Wonderful. And I'm going to turn this down really low. Slide this guy out of the way.
Can you go over what's in the pasta sauce?
So it is, we have our reserved starchy water from our cooking our pasta, lemon zest, garlic, onion, a little bit of chicken bouillon, cream, and garlic salt, Parmesan cheese. So just a nice kind of lemon, garlic, and some fresh lemon juice sauce, which is nice. It plays well with the seafood, almost like a shrimp scampi or a shrimp and scallop scampi here. And then with the asparagus, it all just works well. We're dropping our scallops in here. And I have them again cooking over. By the time I get this like row on, I always like to start with the outer row first, then do the inner one, because my inner row is the hotter part of my pan. And then that way my outer row should be cooked, and then I can kind of flip them around the other way as well. Just about 30 seconds more or so. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more Parmesan cheese on here.
Can you substitute broccoli instead of asparagus?
Broccoli, spinach, broccolini, zucchini, they all work really well in this dish. They all play really well with that lemon and garlic flavor. There you go. Okay, let's get these guys flipped. You'll have this nice little kind of crusty edge on them. Beautiful. That one needs a little more. Perfect. I'm going to rotate my pan. And when you know kind of when to flip them is when you start to see your little brown crusty edge or their feet forming. That's when you know they're ready to flip. And then we'll slide these guys over. Here's our nice shrimp. The shrimp I cooked up first over the scallops because, again, the shrimp can handle heat longer than the scallops. Scallops are a lot more delicate. Okay, let's get those flipped. And then it doesn't take very long for these guys to cook all the way through. You don't want to overcook them. Overcooked scallops will turn rubbery, and so they're not good, then they're chewy. So just have your tongs ready and available so you know when to get in there and flip them. Also, don't overcrowd your pan. Make sure there's enough space around each one so that they can cook and get a good sear on them. Okay. I think we're good here. Grab any of the ones that look nice first. We got one done. Beautiful. Also, when you're cooking, especially a frozen scallop, make sure it is patted dry very well because any moisture in it will also prevent that like good sear from forming on it. Okay. Got this. Nice and lovely. Let's grab these off. And then we can kind of plate up how well served, and then we can bid you guys adieu. I'll have to keep you guys around for the second batch of scallops cooking through, but we'll get them on, and then we'll start from here. Make sure when you lay your scallops down, they're little discs, so you just got to make sure you lay them on the disc part, not on their side on there. That way they cook up nicely, because you want them to sear up almost like, like a pancake. Now, sometimes their discs aren't perfect. They have like a split through them, but they all should be able to stand up nicely like a cylinder.
Can you go over how you know when they're done?
When you'll flip them once you start to see that crust side form on them. Scallops typically just need a minute on each side to cook all the way through. They will continue cooking after you remove them. So the biggest fear is overcooking versus undercooking. Once you've noticed that crusty heat where you see these little brown edges forming on it, so like right here, that's when you know they're going to be done. You'll also know that they're done is if they're not super like jiggly. If they've got the little firmness to them, then they're cooked all the way through. Okay. Let me give our pasta a good stir here, mixing up our Parmesan into it, looking lovely. And let's see, beautiful. Get these flipped over. Perfect. And I'm going to rotate my pan here, but we've got these nice splits on here. Gorgeous. And this is where I'm going to say you don't want to do it in all oil because the butter really gives you a golden brown color and the flavor of it. But this mixture of both butter and oil really just make it delicious. Get these last ones. And I will say, when you are going to pan fry scallops, the bigger, the better. The little teeny tiny Patagonia scallops are not good. They cook too fast, and so they get rubber. They're the cheapest scallop you can get because they're teeny tiny, but you can't pan sear them, and so they're just not a great eating scallop. They're better in like a paella or whatnot where you're going to kind of cook it differently, but for pan searing, you can't sear them up well enough. They overcook really, really fast on it. Okay. Well, we've got our sourdough bread over here. These shall be done in about, 30 seconds here. Let me grab my knife. We can cut through our sourdough since it's had a chance to cool. Take a peek at its crumb here. And then by the time we get cut through it, we should, our sourdough or our scallops should be nice and done. Look at our beautiful crumb there. Lovely. A nice little tighter crumb. I am a one who, you can see how soft it is, but I love my sourdough not to have super huge voids in it. Some people love theirs very airy, which means they proof it longer. I love mine with a slightly tighter crumb on it like that way, because if you try to spread butter on a very holy sourdough, you're going to get butter on your hands. So it's more about being practical when you eat. Okay, let's get these guys off. Looking gorgeous. Beautiful. Pop them up here. We've got our scallops going.
Are the scallops breaded?
No, that is just the garlic salt little bits crisping up. You typically can get 2 good pan sears off in a pan before needing to clean it because the little bits will fry down into the grease. So those are actually just tasty little fried seasoned bits. Have a lot of flavor. It's the flaked garlic salt. There we go. And beautiful. So turn this guy off. Bring this over here. And we are done with our feast tonight. So let's plate up how we're going to serve up our dinner. And I'm going to bring my bread over here because then I'll get us a nice good slice of bread to put on our plate as well. And then, of course, we've got our snacking board, our charcuterie, among other things. It's so delicious. Our feast among feasts here. Okay. I need my shovel. And I think we probably get that. I need a plate. Okay. Let's get a slice of our bread here. That's the sound of that nice crust. Just look how soft and fluffy. Like, look how much you can squeeze this down. Just amazing. So for dinner tonight, we have our homemade sourdough bread with our lemon, garlic, and asparagus pasta. We use fresh lemon zest in there, garlic, onions, cream, Parmesan cheese, and it just has this really bright flavor to it. And then we're going to top it with our pan-seared shrimp and our pan-seared scallops. So it's almost giving you, and we use garlic salt to season these, like a shrimp scampi, a scallop scampi dish here. One more. So you've got a little bit of this. And then, of course, throughout the night, to really keep us well fed tonight, we have our charcuterie of charcuteries. This is a beast of a feast here for New Year's to keep us full until 2026. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page, search for what we made. So we've got our shrimp and scallop lemon garlic pasta with asparagus and homemade sourdough bread and charcuterie. And you can watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets. I've got my all-clad, my hex-clad. I even got my giant charcuterie board in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.